Safety and Security Committee meeting. Today is September 26th. First item on the agenda, I'm staring at the page and I went blank. Julie, has the meeting been properly posted? Yes. Wonderful, thank you. The next item on our agenda tonight is the opportunity for citizens to speak. Prior to the meeting, nobody has signed up, so we are moving on to the next item, which is an action item. Our action item is to approve the minutes from the August 16th Safety and Security Committee meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Wonderful. Mr. McCaffrey,
I'll second that.
and seconded by Mr. Como. Wonderful. And any discussion on last month's minutes? None? Wonderful. I don't believe we need a roll call, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, passes 3-0, Julie. Thank you. Now we are on to our information items for this evening, and on our agenda there are 3 items. We will have Dr. Cook sharing that information with us, so we'll start with the update on the status of the school safety grant, please.
So as I had mentioned last month, the district in the second round of the school safety grant was eligible for an additional $707,000. We are going to do some in-district training, so the Department of Justice this week has awarded us $726,000 in safety grant money for the second round. And just to kind of give everybody a little bit of perspective, I mean, the second round of the grant focused on making sure that you had certain mental health and threat assessment pieces in your district. And then you could use that money also for some safety and security upgrades around your buildings. But if you were to look at the money that we were awarded in the mental health grant from the DPI, plus the money that we were awarded in the first round of the grant, plus the second round, the district this year is going to be investing over $1.4 million in safety and security in our district and mental health. And I know that Darren in the next item is going to kind of go through some of the items specifically that we're going to be addressing, but just kind of generally within that second round of grant funding, we're going to be capturing, again, some perimeter security around all of our buildings and some internal messaging systems at 2 of our high school locations. And so I won't go any farther because I don't want to steal Darren's thunder.
There.
I was glad to hear that we got money in the second round. Actually, as you know, we're members of WASB, and they send out electronic newsletters. And when I clicked on the article in the newsletter as to who was awarded, I didn't see us in there. I'm like, darn, we didn't get any. So I thought I was prepared for bad news, Joe.
No. Again, it was similar to the first grant. They were releasing grant awards in waves.
Okay.
We submitted our grant obviously in a timely manner. We hit the deadline, but then we get into a period of the grant review. And one of the areas we looked at, and we are purchasing some social and emotional learning curriculum with the second round of the grant. We wanted to try to do a 3-year license, which would have been most advantageous for the district. The grant requirements only allow you for 1 year. So you get into the conversations with the Department of Justice, they have to unlock the grant, you have to resubmit the grant, and that was pushed us into that second approval level.
Well, and these grants cover different areas than what we're going to referendum for.
Correct.
So, and that was a question that came up at last night's information meeting at Waukesha South. Is there overlap there? And there really isn't. We can't spend capital improvement monies on, which is what the referendum is for, on things like the training. Those are operational costs. So they're come out of completely separate buckets. So that's good news. I'm glad.
Thank you.
Glad that, and thank you for all the effort that went into the application there. A lot of time there. So thank you.
Got a nice team working on it.
Very good. Anything else? All right, the next item is another informational item, and that's the update on the safety and security referendum items, which, Mr. Clark, is that you?
Yeah. Attached to your executive summary is, again, this is a document we'll put out on the webpage for the referendum, but it tries to map out how the different funding sources for safety and security will line up and how we will break them out. And there's certainly some overlap in categories, but not overlap in terms of doing some work and then the new funding source comes in, we tear out the old. That's not our point. So we broke it down by referendum scope and then the 2 tiers or the 2 rounds of the state safety and security grants, which are the teal sections in the middle of the page. And then, of course, district operational funds, we continue to do safety improvements as we go. Banting Elementary School is a perfect example. We have a secure entrance there now that we did over the summer. It's only one school, but we were doing other work there, and it was just advantageous to do this work as well. So the top scope in, I don't know, I'm trying to connect to the Apple TV, and I'm not getting much cooperation. There we go. There we go. I'll go through what the referendum scope is. It'll make this page look, make more sense, and then we'll walk through how the tiers or the other funding sources, and now, you know, the bottom 3 sources are all known. When we created this document, we weren't sure of the round 2 of the state safety grant. So, again, just for people who are viewing at home, this is the website we have for the referendum information. If you go under, so this is a snapshot, so I won't take you there. But if you go under solution, it maps out the different work by grade level, meaning elementary, middle, and high school. So for anyone who wants additional information or more specific information, it's there for them. We had broken down the need for the referendum into 3 main categories: safety and security, capital maintenance, building, classroom, and ADA improvements. So obviously, safety and security is a major issue now. So I'm just going to walk you through. I'm not going to go through all the finance and all the rest of the presentation, but just hit on the safety improvements that we are looking to put in place. The first thing we did to identify a safety and security plan, regardless of the funding source, and of course that's limited by how much funding we would have, is we identified 17 attributes that a secure school would have. And then we use these to measure each of our schools against them. And I listed some of them. I didn't list all 17 of them because it'd be slides and slides of information. But it's as simple as classroom door security. How does it lock? How quickly can a teacher shut the door and secure it and lock it? All the way up to building segmentation, securing a structurally secure main entrance. So there was a process in developing the plan that we'll review in a few minutes. Capital maintenance, and we've touched on in finance and facilities and ADA improvements, so I won't touch on them here. The solution at the elementary schools and at the STEM sites, safety and security is the main investment that we are making at those schools. Main entrances, again, lockable interior doors or building segmentation, additional security cameras, improved communication systems, and improved door locking systems. And then other investment at that level would be some capital maintenance, mainly exterior site components, meaning asphalts, roofs, windows, those types of things. One of the things that we're hoping to do at all the schools, and with the referendum solution, we do at the middle school level by building additions. We don't foresee that at the elementary level, but all of our schools, the preferred structure of an entrance is that teal line through the diagram. And this isn't one of our schools, it's just what it can look like. It's just an example. Once the kids get in from the first bell to the last bell during the school day, you want visitors to come into a vestibule and then be forced structurally to go into an office or reception area where we will run the Raptor. Raptor is one of the things we're implementing from phase 1, round 1 of the state security grant. You come in, do the background check. Sometimes all you're doing is dropping something off and you never really have to go into our buildings. And then you are released into the building, buzzed out of the office by staff. So there's a check, there's a reason why you're there, it all makes sense. A lot of times people think safety and security are the horrific things you see on TV or read about, but a lot of it's also family situations and just odd situations where you need to be mindful of who's getting access to your building. The other thing you'd like to accomplish, it's a little harder here. We have 26 sites, and they all have a different floor plan, and where the parking lot's always different. Is that orange line, you would prefer to have line of sight out into the parking lot for your office staff, whether that's the principal or the secretary or assistant principal, so you can see what's coming up to your building, not just seeing what's in the foyer. So again, in the perfect world, the picture there, I think, is East Troy. This was a small addition, so not all of them are gonna look like this. Probably very few of them will look as nice as this one does, or with as much line of sight. But we hope to implement some of these features at our other schools. The other improvement that is kind of shared between the state safety grant and the referendum work and operational dollars is greater building segmentation. Our buildings were built high security needs, pre-ADA, all those things we've talked about. When your facility's average age is about 60 years old, your building was built here in Waukesha, neighborhood school. You walked to the door that was closest to your home, you opened it up, and you entered your school. Once you're inside our schools now, there's really no segmentation of the building whatsoever. You have complete access to go just about anywhere you want. At the high school level, we have some, but in particular elementaries, it's pretty much the old design. It's open hallways, and what we would hope to do is put in these divider doors or building segmentation doors, and they would be on magnets, so you could have, similar to a fire alarm, an emergency alarm, probably in a couple locations. Office is one that comes to mind, but somewhere else on the opposite end of a building, where these doors, the magnets would release, and you would be able to break down and shrink up the access that an intruder would have in your building. The other thing these doors would do is, especially our high schools and even into the middle schools, facility use. High schools run 365, 24/7. A lot of events that happen, there is pre-planning involved in all that, and by shrinking again up that access, a person's ability to plan is at least made more difficult than it otherwise would be. So again, it seems like a small thing, and we're not gonna chop our buildings up into 20 different little segments. It's not gonna be that either. These hallways still have to function with kids moving throughout the building throughout the day, and you can't have doors slamming constantly. So, but again, this is all levels, all sites, and multiple funding sources for this item. The middle schools, we talked about safety and security in the main entrances again. Cameras, improving, again, safety has a broad range. It can be making a drop-off and pick-off safer, like we're gonna do at Butler, or could do at Butler Middle School. The clocks and intercom systems, door hardware, again, would be replaced. At Butler Middle School, we accomplish the secure entrance by doing a small addition. And the kind of the interior square space is the 3-floor foyer that'll allow us to bring an elevator and full accessibility to Butler, which is a 3-story building. It wasn't designed for an elevator. It's never had an elevator, so we have to really start from scratch. So the number 8 down in the, actually I'll go to the next floor, it's easier to see. The number 8 in the lower left-hand corner would be an addition of office and student services space, along with that foyer in number 2 where the elevator would go. You get that flow through, again, during the day, the instructional day when students are in class, where you would be forced to go into the office, and then the office would release you out into the building. Right now, the students enter at the top of the screen, number 7, that set of doors there. They enter there, and the office is actually up a floor and in the far right-hand lower corner. So structurally now, there's no way to create that flow of visitors through the office.
Yeah, this is a huge improvement. Offices, nobody knows where the front door is at Butler right now, and where do you find the offices? I mean, the offices are so tucked away right now, unless you've been there. Like, when parents come there for the first couple weeks, they're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But, and having them down you know, I think our architects have done really an amazing job with this. And then thinking about the bus flow and the drop-off, I thought this is really very good. This is probably one of the better improvements that I've seen. I think all the improvements are going to be good, but I thought this was really a spectacular one.
Another thing on the safety and security, going back to the satellite view, is the reworking of the parking lot structure. Again, oftentimes, safety and security, people think of the worst type of situations. But this would also, we're expanding the drive where it would cut all the way across east-west. And what that does is allow us to queue up cars and buses on our property and take the pressure off of the surrounding roads. We have a lot of walkers coming to Butler, and right now we commingle a lot of car traffic, bus traffic with kids who, you know, just are walking to school. So it'll help define the spaces those people would operate in. The parent drop-off would be kind of the inner kind of rectangle, and then that flow across the campus on the south side would be busing and staff parking.
Do we have an exit right now onto
Orland?
Orland?
Mm-mm.
How hard is it to get that from the city? I know the city doesn't necessarily like to just give approaches.
That's a hurdle we have yet to address. I don't think there's anything else. And again, as Joe had mentioned, right now, wish laser pointers don't work on these screens, but in the lower right-hand corner, right, you can see that car kind of in the middle of Hine Avenue. That sidewalk just north of there is the entrance. I guess it's the main entrance. It leads to the office.
That's the address.
And right now, we have secure entrance. I don't want people who maybe are listening at home to think you have to buzz into our buildings now throughout the instructional day. But if you are buzzed in, you go in there and it's a flight of stairs down or up, and you have complete access to, you know, you can go to the office, and most people do just to drop off the forgotten backpack or whatever. But for someone who's looking to have more access to our buildings, you have complete access at Butler via those stairs. So again, I don't know how many people know that is actually the front door. Right now, I think they think the entrance off of Michigan, which we have it here where we took out the horseshoe drive because we want to steer people to the back of the building. We don't want to leave that there, and then they're always going to think that's where you come. So we think from just the grounds at Butler, the exterior, that we're making some nice improvements.
There's way more parking, and the flow for the buses will be much safer. I don't know if you've ever been down Michigan Avenue when it's been the beginning of school. It's pretty gnarly. Yeah, it's gnarly.
So again, the flow, you can see it at the bottom, will be a major increase. Again, I keep repeating, but it's that flow through the office that you're really shooting. The rest of the building, there is limited segmentation at Butler, but we would further divide that space. Again, not into tiny, to make it a maze of doors, but to provide at least some capacity. One thing that it seems like a small improvement, but really going back to that facility use part of our facilities, because the secondary schools really are community centers in a lot of ways. By the number 3, we would bring those toilets where the access would be on the cafeteria side, so we could lock off the rest of the building and still provide those services. Right now, the toilets are further down, where you have to leave that bank of doors open, and once you do that, you've left, the entire building open at that point. So, again, making it where we can continue to be a resource for community members, but provide, a certain level of security 24/7. This is just the second floor. And right now, where the 6s are, that's where the existing office space is. We would simply renovate that back and do instructional space. Pretty easy renovation. You're not changing the hallway or anything of that nature. Horning, very similar in nature. We're not touching the traffic flow at Horning. We just don't have many options to work from. But right now, we would do a small addition, the little yellow rectangle. The next slide, the building rotates to the left. So that's the same addition in the lower right-hand corner. But where the number 2 is right now, that is where the offices are now. On that side of the building, you have sister doors that you can buzz into and walk into the building, and you can go up a flight of stairs right there. You can walk straight, you can go to the office, but you have really free reign over the building. So we would do that addition, we would flip section 2 where the offices were and bring them down to number 1 and create again that flow through the office, and then backfill the existing administrative offices with instructional space again. Again, building segmentation would be added. We didn't have it on these drawings, but we would follow through with that same approach. This is just the second floor of Horning. Again, once the first floor is secure during the day, this is fine the way it is. Les Paul, same issue. Right now, you can see right next to the number 2 secure entrance. Right now, you come to a foyer and you can be buzzed in, and right across the hallway into that green, where the small number 2 is, that section, that's where the offices are now, and there is a secretary there that does buzz you, but you have to cross that hallway and enter the office voluntarily. You can go left or right and have complete access to Les Paul. The key to this is that hallway is not easily moved. It's truly the lifeline between the 2 different towers within the building. So you had to pull the offices out in front of that to get that secure entrance where you have to enter the reception or office area and then be released into that hallway once the background checks are secured. So that's what number 2 does. We would backfill that office space with either a small instructional space or maybe conference rooms. We really haven't gotten into specifically what that backfill would be, but we think the addition goes a long way in securing Les Paul as well. Just the additional floors were, again, once you've secured the entrance, in terms of security, we're good. Again, in terms of secure entrances now, west is relatively easy to do. We just need to add a bank of doors and create a foyer. Right now, you have access to the offices. You can go to the principal's or student services side, and they can release you into the hallway. But you need that extra bank of doors to create that space that forces them into the offices. So again, west is pretty easy. North has a secure entrance. If you've been there, it's a very large lobby, but it does function as that locked space, and they are forced to check in during the day there. So that north is our only structurally secure entrance in the school district right now. That leaves us with south. What we're proposing with south is a small addition on the Roberta side. Right next to the library or adjacent to the library for people who are familiar with south. So that yellow triangle at the top of the screen would be the addition. I think I have a blown up, this is blowing up that section. Very similar process. We would build an addition to create that office space. That lighter yellow triangle with the dashed line would be some architectural feature to draw people to that door, not a major thing, but just to let them know this is where you enter the building. And then you would have that flow through the reception attendance area where you'd come in, check in, and be released out. The long green rectangle on the left-hand side is the old office space or the current office space. Again, we would backfill that with special ed and classroom space. So that's the security upgrade at south. The other thing we would do is extend the horseshoe on Roberta. Right now it's very tight in there. And you have people leaving the staff parking lot and people trying to exit through. So we would actually be able to add about a dozen parking spaces right in front of this entrance during the day. Because a lot of the visitors during the day are dropping off something, picking up a kid for a doctor's appointment or whatever, it's in and out traffic, so we'd have that designated spot for them to park. And it would take off that burden of everyone going down into the staff lot, looping back, and everyone all coming back out
Way more convenient.
on that service road. Yeah, I would think people would find it more convenient as well. Question I have gotten is, if you're familiar with South and you look up the hill, you see what is architecturally the main entrance right in front of the auditorium. We did look at that as a possible secure entrance, but it has several issues with it. First, ADA-wise, you have to step up to get to the doors. Once you're in the doors, you have to take a couple steps to get to the hallway level. ADA and ramping-wise, anything is possible, it's just not the best solution. You also, once you're in the building there, you have 2 flights of stairs on each side that go up to the 2nd floor. Not what we're looking for. Now, that entrance would still be used for school events, especially large events at the auditorium after hours when class is not in session. So it would really continue to be the community's main entrance to the school. And of course, on the other side of the buildings, the main entrance for athletics and those things occur outside of the school day as well. So again, these secure entrances are from the first bell to the last bell is really what they're focused on. So
I've seen some of the segmenting doors here. Are they just not out
they're
there?
not, we haven't
or-
drawn them,
Okay.
we haven't drawn them, and we've gone through and kind of marked up where we think, I forget the number we have for South, but there's not many now. Right now, what we have at South, like you do with a lot of older schools, is you have the gates, and those are frowned upon by fire departments, et cetera, so, right.
Yeah.
So
Room and see what's going on behind them.
those gates aren't necessarily at bad locations, they're just not
Yeah, right.
the solution that's acceptable today. So again, we pretty much lock off the athletic side, from the instructional side would be the main goal there, but those gates would be a good guide to us on where those doors should be placed.
Question about ADA itself, and we talked about the main entrance. How does somebody who's handicapped get to a play? How do they get in right now? And the reason I say that is because I want to say that the secure entrance was the original entrance when it was a senior high. I think that's where the sign is, isn't it? Carved above the
Yeah.
door. That was the
Yeah.
original entrance. This, I don't know when that was added, but how do we get, because we're putting the elevator at Butler, so how would somebody get in today if they were going to a plane in a wheelchair?
You look at the architectural entrance in front of the auditorium now.
Yep.
And if you follow that bank of classrooms all the way down to where the drawing ends,
Okay,
there is a entrance, yep.
Oh,
There's
okay.
an entrance right at the end of there that would accommodate for ADA
okay.
in the moment.
But
When
do
you
we use that? Is that open when they have?
If there is a play, that's where people would go. If you look again over the course of the school day, we did talk about, where could you secure a place? If you were to have people enter your building there, you run with issues with the stairway location there, but then also you have that whole hallway that gives you free access to the building as you're making your way to the front office.
And the handicap parking, right, is right here.
Yeah, it's adjacent to the door.
Okay.
This section's down.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay, yeah, I know, I see what you're saying. Yep. Yes.
Yeah, we moved
Yeah,
the
you had to
wing.
move it up.
One wing's floating around a little bit, the Kmart wing or whatever. So going back to,
There's if you go back to that last one, Darren, there's a ramp right here now.
yep,
So.
Yeah, on the other side of the
There,
field house.
Ramp there.
Yeah, yeah.
That wasn't, a little bit, a number of years ago, but not like that many years ago.
and we haven't gotten into this
6, maybe?
this detail of planning, but the new secure entrance would also be
At ground
ADA,
level.
yeah, it'd be
Right, it'll be a-
at grade,
Yeah,
and
grade.
handicap accessible. Any other questions on South?
No, I don't have a question on South, but I do have a question with this layout here.
Sure.
It says district elementary schools, Butler, Horning, Les Paul, Saratoga, STEM. Other pieces that I've seen, STEM is referred to as both sites, Randall and Saratoga. And I had a family contact me when they saw the initial things. They were like, I don't see Saratoga on here. Just for clarity, are we referring to middle schools? Are we including Saratoga over there? Or are we including Saratoga with STEM?
In this list, Randall is included with district elementary schools. And then because we listed all the other middle schools individually, we listed Saratoga STEM on this sheet, just so people would know that we didn't
To answer the
forget
question of
that
these
we have a
folks.
fourth middle
They-
school in the form of Saratoga. In district elementary schools, we mean any school facility we have in that grade level, whether it's STEM or not.
Okay, so it was basically addressing what their concern was. They're saying, I don't see Saratoga on here. I had to go back to them and say, when we refer to the STEM sites, we're referring to Saratoga. So now it's broken out.
Yes.
And Randall,
And I think we broke it out because of questions we got on it too.
same thing. Okay, good. Just want to get clarity for them. Thank you.
So, go
Yes,
ahead.
sir.
Yeah, I like how you've put this sheet together because there are three sources of funding, really. There's the referendum funding, which is the black bar. The two teal bars deal with the grants, and then we are taking out of our operational budget some of the modifications also. So I like how you organize this, showing how we're receiving, from where we're receiving the funding. It is complex. There is no just one bucket that we can pull from, just due to the nature. Some are operational costs and some are capital improvements, and these are different funding sources. Obviously, we have the safety grants in place, and we have our operational budget, and what we're asking for is for additional funding in the black. So that was, I thought this was for a snapshot of a complex, huge project. I thought this was well organized.
Could we struggled with it to make it all, it seems like it should be very easy. So this is the best shot. We wanted to stay consistent with the format that we had for the overall matrix for the referendum plan. So, it's not as crisp and clean as this. There's even more overlap than we have, but we wanted to give people, and again, as Joe mentioned, we got the question, and Amanda was there last night. A very good question is, how does this all come together? And there is a strategy to make it fit as though it's one funding source in the end, so.
Okay, any other questions to this item? None? Very good. Our next information item is the police department, excuse me.
I know anyone who's listening or watching was probably wondering what sheet we're looking at. We'll have this on the web page tomorrow for anyone who wants to take a look at it.
Right, and this particular sheet is titled Referendum Information, Building Safety Improvement Plan. And again, it has the bars saying referendum scope of work, grant rounds 1 and 2, and district operational budget. So that'll be the form to look for. Thank you for that. Okay. Again, carrying on to the third information item, that is the police department school visit report given by Dr. Cook.
Yeah, I think it was last month, Mr. McCaffrey asked for a update as to how many times the police responded to our schools. And so I worked with the Waukesha Police. They were able to generate a report. And I asked if there's any way possible to go through and see like why they came. And so I can give you kind of a narrative as to why, but to break down by the number of calls for specific reasons, it ranges from everything, and so we'll get into that a little bit. But you can see that the police responded to one of our school, or all of our school locations, 1,074 times last school year. That sounds like a lot of police visits. And if you look at it on the surface, it is. But when I was talking to the Waukesha Police Department, there are times where somebody gets pulled over for speeding in front of Whittier Elementary School or South High School, and part of the police report is the address of the school because it's the nearest address. Other school visits, we created at the elementary level the community policing police buddy program. some of the police visits that you see on here are when the police officer shows up and has lunch with kids, speaks to a class, or plays kickball. Not any sort of emergency, things that we're very proud that we have a good relationship on, but nonetheless, it generates the fact that we have an officer in the community that is assigned to a school location. The information that you see at the high school and the middle school, obviously based off of the population of the school, the number of kids that we have there, you're gonna see more just because there's a size. But in that, at those, at north, south, and west, for years now, we have had a dedicated school resource officer. Those contacts that that officer may be having, again, it can run that full thing. It could be for a disorderly conduct ticket. It could be for an underage drinking situation. It could be for another type of event where that officer is bringing somebody onto the campus. The other, another officer on for a speaking engagement or whatever. The other thing that factors in here is football games, basketball games, soccer games, wherever we have a police presence. So you can see that we've got there's a lot of reasons that officers would show up.
Right.
They were here on our properties 1,074 times. There is an asterisk next to Rose Glen that is covered by the county. The county the sheriff's department was there one time for an actual incident. They have a captain who is the outreach person. And so when you get into the administrative type things, like you don't see a whole lot of Lindholm, you don't see any Lindholm. We've had police officers here at Lindholm for meetings and such. They don't record when a lieutenant or a captain is coming on site, is what I was told. So you can see that there's a variance in the number. There's more more visits obviously at our high school, fewer visits at the elementary school, and there was one visit at Rose Glen last year. So that's the contact.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I remember prior to having SROs, so police would get a call and they'd have to get in their cars, drive down to the school and figure out what's going on, and different officers would show up. And I think the SRO program is really beneficial to not only the individual schools and the students in the schools, but to our community. I believe it's created efficiencies, time efficiencies. Certainly it's much quicker if someone's on premise. And just the cost. We don't have the cost of the cars, and well, there still is a car that SRO has that he or she drives in. But overall costs, we've been able to, together with the city, working together, bring costs down. And I think one of the big pluses that we gain that isn't talked about very often is the relationships that the SROs form with the students there. There's a person that, they can bond with and they get to know and they start to trust, and you get perhaps better information on what is going on with the incidences.
And that, I just add to that, and I don't have exact numbers on that, but I do know in many instances, students reach out or parents reach out to the SRO and information is provided early, and you can prevent bigger things from happening by having that flow of communication and that level of comfort with a police officer.
And boy, it was a long time ago when we were first looking at numbers of incidences, but I thought it was more like 1,800 back 15 years or so ago. Now, my memory's maybe not quite that good, but it'd be interesting I don't know if you have historical numbers on incidences, Joe, to go that far back to see.
There may be a file somewhere, and we can certainly look to dig that up.
I wouldn't spend a lot of time trying to dig it up. I mean, it's not that important of a fact, but I thought I remember the incidences being, several hundred more.
Certainly, and if I can find it, I'll bring it to another committee meeting, but what we can use though is this is some baseline information as we go into our future, because if there is a way to tease out the calls, but really they're able to generate a pretty quick, easy report just based off of the address for us.
Great.
That's good. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Moving on to the next item on our agenda, which is discussion items. We do not have any tonight, so we're going to move past that to other business. And under other business is recommendations for future committee meetings. Any suggestions, anything you're just dying to know about?
I do have a question.
Yes.
Do we have a plan for, say, an issue at a football game?
We do. We've got a plan to address egress from those locations, as well as messaging that our game managers would.
All right. Any other items? Anything else? No? Thank you very much. So with that, the next Safety and Security Committee meeting will be held Thursday, October 18th, here at Lindholm at 6 o'clock. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.